You are now tuned into the Anxious Ambition podcast, where you'll be hearing raw and unfiltered conversations with those who struggle with mental illness but refuse to let that get in the way of them achieving their dreams. Our hope is that by hearing their stories, you are inspired to do more. Here are their stories.
Anxious Ambition.
Welcome back to another episode of the Anxious Ambition podcast. We are back from our little bit of a break in the season. Just like you guys, I need a break from my mental health too. And just like a little reminder before we even get started is like, if you need a break, don't feel like you can't take one. So like, for me, I feel refreshed. I'm ready to go. And I'm super excited for this half of the season. We're going to try to continue with keeping all male guests just because honestly, it's underrepresented in this field, and we want more and more men to talk about their mental health. So, today's guest, if you guys listened to the last episode with Dalton Solbrig, this is one of the other founding members of Off the Court. So, he's a former University of Hawaii volleyball player, and he's now pursuing his master's in athletic training. His journey has not been an easy one. During his last 2 seasons of collegiate volleyball, he developed an eating disorder. He's now a mental health advocate and, like I said before, one of the founding members of Off the Court. If you haven't watched that other episode, go check it out. Great episode with Dalton. Great guy, great story. But Off the Court is an initiative that focuses on providing information, resources, basically helping athletes with their mental health, nutrition, and recovery. So everything off the court. Perfect name, by the way. And I said to Dalton, it's like, you guys nailed it. So
gotta give credit to Faye and Dalton for that one.
Ooh.
I was not a part of that conversation, but I was like, you know what? I like it, so stick to it.
We may have to go back. I thought Dalton told me he came up with the name.
It was one of them too, they brought me on later on.
Right. So either way. So here to share his story, James Anastassiades. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me, and what an introduction. One thing I did want to mention is I did change my master's. Ooh. I was doing athletic training, but kind of realized that I didn't want to be an athletic trainer the rest of my life. So considering we're trying to help athletes become better athletes, figuring out how they can do that off the court, I did decide to switch to kinesiology. Awesome. So I'm doing my master's in kinesiology with a focus in exercise and sports physiology.
That's awesome.
Just kind of understand the importance of how the physiology of your body helps you become a better athlete, and knowing those systems can actually help develop a lot more. So I was like, all right, I'm a little bit more interested in the performance side now than I was the injury recovery side. So yeah,
I know this is about you, but it's so funny you say that because I went to Clark University my first 2 years when I was still playing college volleyball, and I went in and I was like big into exercise and everything, and I signed up for athletic training. And I was like, okay, this is not what I signed up for. Yeah. I give them so much credit. It's so hard. It's so much more like scientific than.
Yeah, no, kudos to athletic trainers. I just could not do that for the rest of my life. Like they are some of the hardest working people I've ever met, and like Absolutely. Without them, a lot of athletes literally can't be who they are. It just wasn't for me, but like, oh my gosh, so much credit to athletic trainers, because the hours that I put in, because we're supposed to get like a certain amount of hours to graduate from athletic training, is like those hours that you put in are just so exhausting. And that was maybe a little less than half of what they're doing to their day-to-day jobs. Like, it's insane.
Oh yeah.
Dude, like, mad love and respect to all my athletic trainers out there, because they are definitely working their behinds off.
Oh yeah. I think I made it a year, and it was like, this is not for me, but because it's a lot of, not that I'm not against work. I wasn't passionate enough to push through all that.
Exactly. No, I totally feel you with that.
Yeah. And like, for me, honestly, I even made the shift to kinesiology, exercise science, what I ended up getting my degree in. And honestly, it was like, oh, I want to get into nutrition. And that wasn't even what that really even was. So long story short, I don't even use my degree anymore. I'm in sales and blah, blah, blah. But just kind of that connection.
That's cool.
Very cool. I want, just give you a little bit of background. So you're, how did you get from one, I know you grew up in Cyprus, one, like I'm ignorant to like where that even is, where it is. How did you get from Cyprus to now you were playing collegiate volleyball in Hawaii, and you're still in Hawaii? How, walk me through that journey.
Yeah. So, gosh, we got to rewind a lot of years now, I guess. So I was born and raised on the island of Cyprus. It's in the Eastern Mediterranean Ocean. It's kind of like we're very close to Turkey and Israel, and to the east side of us, a little further away, is like Greece and all that.
Okay.
I give the easiest example to most people. I just tell them I'm Greek. It's
okay.
Not a Greek island. We're our own independent nation, but we are of Greek descent, I guess you could say, and we speak Greek on Cyprus. Okay. So I grew up bilingual. My mom's from Oregon. My dad's Cypriot. They both were athletes at the University of Oregon. Okay. So my dad graduated. My mom followed him to Cyprus because my dad helped with our family business at the time. And then, yeah, so I mean, I grew up. I played sports since I was 5 years old. Pretty much once I was done with my recovery, because I did have my spleen taken out when I was 4.
Oh, wow.
So I was in and out of hospitals pretty much all first 4 years of my life. And then once I was done with that, got into soccer when I was about 5.5 years old, because it's by far the biggest sport in Europe. So I was like, yeah, soccer player it is. Then around 8 or 9 years old, I picked up basketball as well. So I was kind of like grew up playing soccer and basketball. And then my sophomore year of high school, my high school basketball coach was like, hey, our basketball team isn't going to be that great this year. Why don't you just come and play volleyball? Like, just have fun with it. I was like, all right, cool. So at our first game, the national team coach was there, and he had developed this program where he really wanted to focus on teaching kids the technique of volleyball and how focusing on technique and quality of training can eventually turn into a lot faster progress to get to the next level. And so he asked me to come and train with him a couple times and see if I would like it, and also see if I was what he was looking for, because he was pretty much just looking for tall, lengthy people on the island. Sure. Not many Cypriot guys are above 6 foot. So I was like, all right, cool, I'll try it out. And then I fell in love with volleyball. So picked up volleyball then. I trained with him one-on-one for 1.5 years, and then played on my first club team. And then I was like, hey, this is probably something I really want to do in college. So we were going through the whole recruiting process. And that same year, Cyprus got hit with pretty much the same crisis that Greece did in 2014.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that crisis affected us, and we had essentially lost mine and my brother's college funds to come to the US as a family. So within 3 weeks, we decided, all right, we got to pack everything up and just move. That way we can at least get in-state tuition. It'll be a little bit more affordable. Wow. And all that. So within 3 weeks, I pretty much packed up my entire life. My senior year of high school, I was only, was I turning 16 at the time? No, I was turning 17. So I was 16 years old.
Wow.
Packed up and moved halfway across the world, right? And that was a tough year for me, honestly. You think that moving to like one of the most beautiful places in the world sounds amazing, but as a 16-year-old kid, I couldn't graduate with everyone that I grew up with. I couldn't finish off my senior year, like this, both club season and then high school season, with like the guys that I'd been playing with for the past 3-4 years. Yeah. So it was a big change for me, right? And then socially, it's just like European kids are way different than American kids, and like our hobbies are way different. And that was a huge adjustment for me. Even though I had been traveling to the US over the summers, it was just such a crazy culture shock for me. And so I moved to Huntington Beach, California, and we were already discussing with some universities at the time. But California just seemed like it was the mecca of volleyball. A lot of the better club teams were in Southern California, so Huntington Beach just kind of seemed perfect. So it was funny, like the 3 weeks of just the research and like contacting coaches and club coaches and all this, trying to figure out what's the best move. I went to Huntington Beach High School, played with TJ DeFalco, and that very historic Huntington Beach team. By the time I graduated with them, we were 104-0 in 4 years. They hadn't lost a game. But I guess the crazy thing for me is, like, in Cyprus, I was definitely always one of the bigger kids. So I was at the higher level when it came to volleyball. But then I moved to the US, and I'm just like, oh, dude, I suck.
You're in the mecca, like you said.
I go from playing with some of the best kids in Cyprus to like where you have maybe 1,000 kids in Cyprus that play volleyball. You have 1,000 kids in like 3 clubs playing volleyball, you know, like it was insane. So yeah, I mean, that's how I ended up in Huntington Beach. And then the whole recruiting process, I pretty much emailed all 32 schools that had Division I volleyball. Well, that had volleyball, I guess. It wasn't even Division I, Division I, 2, and 3. Emailed all 32 schools that had men's volleyball at the time. And I was like, hey, I'm super interested to come. Because I was just looking for anything at that point.
Right.
And then Hawaii was interested, Long Beach was interested, Irvine, Pepperdine. And then there was one more school. I just can't remember. Oh, George Mason, but did not really want to go to the East Coast. And so I kind of narrowed it down between Hawaii and Huntington Beach and Long Beach. Oh my gosh. And so when I came on my recruiting trip to Hawaii, I was 17 years old. No, it was right before I turned 17 years old. 16-year-old kid, grew up on this little island. All he knows about Hawaii is like the tropics and paradise, and it's just amazing. Like it's only things I would see in movies growing up, like it didn't seem like reality to me. And then come out here, and I'll never forget the point that I knew I was like, okay, this is where I want to be. There's this hike. It's called Makapu'u Lighthouse. And so on my first day of our recruiting trip, they kind of just drove us around the whole east side of the island, and they stopped at the lighthouse, and I just go out to the lookout, and right under that is Makapu'u Beach. And I just looked down, and I was like, dude, you would be an idiot if you said no to coming to Hawaii, And so that's kind of like where I knew I wanted to be in Hawaii. And just growing up on an island, it really felt like home. And the values that people have in Hawaii, the sense of family, friendship, just kind of like understanding the value of, hey, it's good to work, but it's also good to like enjoy life and all that kind of stuff. So the quality of life out here is just, I very much connected with it, and kind of got stuck in Hawaii, I guess. I just love it out here. So it's making it very hard to leave.
I can only imagine. That's crazy. I mean, but it seems fitting, like you said, like you go from an island to California to another island where that same kind of vibe. During all these moves, I mean, I know we're going to get into what you struggled with later, but did you have any, looking back, did you have any anxiety or stress or like during these moves, like that you probably hindsight were like, hey, this might have been something else than just stress,
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's definitely a lot of stress,
Sure.
And just to kind of piggyback off my whole philosophy of how I've gone through everything and kind of what's shaped me to who I am today. And I've actually, over COVID, I was like, this would be really cool to write about. So I think I have close to like, I can't remember if the number's 28 or 38. I have about whatever amount of pages it is on it.
That's awesome.
And I just think that a lot of that stress just came with change. It's being in uncomfortable situations and in uncomfortable environments that I wasn't used to, and not really knowing how to deal with it at the time is what caused a lot of that stress, I would say. I wouldn't say I ever really dealt too much with anxiety, and we will get to this topic because I dealt with a lot of like performance anxiety, because I went from, this was a lot easier playing volleyball back in Cyprus to now I'm literally playing with one of the top players in the world in my age group.
Right.
Like just to put in reference, TJ Falco is actually one of my best friends. He wouldn't come to high school practices because he was training with the Olympic team. Yeah, and he'd only show up for games.
Yeah, for people like listening, like who have like no idea anything about volleyball, like it's like you went from, like the island to playing at like Duke basketball or something. Like it's like you're at the best volleyball high school, arguably, and now you go from being the best guy on the team to
just an average, not even like average, very average,
Right.
So like that was a huge smack in my face for me. And it's like in the beginning, you don't really know how to deal with it, but looking back on it, I was like so thankful that it happened because it's a really humbling experience, right? It did teach me the whole, dude, life isn't going to be easy and you kind of got to work at it to get there. But when you're not really educated with how to deal with it, and I didn't have my whole support system, and I'm so thankful that my mom was out there with me and my younger brother, because when we first moved, it was just me, my younger brother, and my mom. We lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Huntington Beach because that's all we could do at the time.
Yeah.
And then my dad stayed back because my older brother was in the mandatory military that we have back home in Cyprus.
Wow.
So we have, now it's down to 13 months, but back when my brother was pretty much got enrolled, it was 24. So my older brother had been in the military for a whole year already. So my dad stayed back until he got out of it. So it was just me, my younger brother, and my mom. And my mom was pretty much my best friend at the time. And my younger brother, we kind of did everything together because we didn't really know so many people. And I guess the worst part about not looking Greek is that I moved to Huntington and everyone thought I was from Huntington Beach. So when I told them I moved from Cyprus, there's literally a town 20 minutes, I believe it's south of Huntington Beach called Cypress, right?
Of course.
So I moved from Cyprus and they're like, oh, cool. Like 20 minutes south. I'm like, no, like 24-hour flight.
Right. Right.
So it was difficult. Like I had a hard time. And like, it was very unfamiliar for me because I had a very big friend group back home just from playing soccer all those years, basketball, and then volleyball. And then I went to public Greek school for elementary school. Middle school, I was in a private English school. And then I went back to what had just started, which was our athletic school in Cyprus. And it was a public Greek school, but they added it became the athlete school where we would train in the morning and then go to school. So I just had known so many people. And then Cyprus is very small. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows everyone. And now I go from wherever I went, I knew someone to I'm walking around school and I literally have no idea who anyone is, and that socially at that age was so tough.
It's like the year, everyone's got their friend groups. Everyone's ready to leave, go to college.
Yeah, exactly. Man. So it was so tough to make friends at the time. And that's why I'm thankful that I had my mom and my younger brother. Then TJ was great. I mean, he was pretty much one of my best friends. I hung out with him all the time. And so, I mean, just that change was so hard to adapt to and get used to, I would say. Mm-hmm. And it was definitely very tough. It takes that huge mental toll on you. It just makes you realize damn, dude, what am I doing? I question dude, do I know what I want to do still? Holy crap. I was such a confident kid. And now I'm just damn, I'm kind of average.
Starting over.
What I'm doing, almost blah, blah, and all this, definitely gave me a sense of, okay, now it's time to grind. And that's where I learned that, you kind of got to work hard for things that you want. But yeah, I mean, the stress of, I pretty much stayed at home all day and didn't really hang out with anyone. And that was just so unfamiliar for me, and it definitely wasn't the happiest of times that I was ever in. And so when I moved to Hawaii, because I kind of shut myself down from allowing myself to talk to people, right? It was unfamiliar environment. People were different. People's hobbies were different. People's interests were different. And I think my biggest issue when I had moved, and this comes back to the whole thing about change, right? Mm-hmm. The biggest issue that I did when I had moved is I wasn't willing to accept that this is my life now. These are the people that I'm going to be surrounded with. And this is my life. I kept comparing people that I would meet in Huntington Beach to, but they're not like this person back home. Right. Yeah. And I kept comparing this is what kids do for fun out here, but it's not as fun as the things I would do back home. So I would never really give it a chance, I guess is a good way to put it. Right. Mm-hmm. So I would say a lot of the issues that I had created on my own just because I wasn't willing to give it a chance. Okay. And I wasn't willing to accept the change that I was going to go through. And so that's when I kind of made the decision, hey, when I moved to Hawaii, none of this comparing, none of this saying no to this and that and this. And it's just take everything for what it is and take every single opportunity that you can. And sheesh, when I moved to Hawaii, I just kind of made the most of it. But then obviously I ran into a lot more issues on the performance side again, right? It's cool, I got recruited here, but now I'm playing with some of the top players in the world in their positions. We had a phenomenal player from the Netherlands, Stein, and then some of the top American players. We had top setter, Joe Worsley, I guess, at the time. And then we had my ex-roommate, Rado Parapunov, lefty, discussing Bulgarian opposite. And then now we have kids from Brazil. It's so much good talent, right? And you're just trying to prove yourself. And that's just tough.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of, I guess the hardest thing in Huntington that I had was, it was just tough to accept the change that, dude, this is my life now and I got to make the most of it. I think a lot of people have a hard time with that. Yeah. How do you come out of that slump of comparison and being able to accept Dude, there's a lot of beautiful things in everything we do, but we tend to shut it down too early for us to accept it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
No,
I hope
get
that answered the question.
I don't care. It doesn't matter. You're good. It was perfect, dude. Like, I just wanted to hear your story. Like, if so many people can relate to that, it's like, and it's funny because you reflect on things. And I think we can look back and be like, man, that's why I did all that, but you think of it like, for you to say it now, it's so much easier than a 16-year-old kid.
Exactly.
Where, like what you're saying, like, instead of, I mean, I'm sure you were scared to do like, mingle with these other kids because everyone's, you're at a fresh start, but high school's over, and it's like, all right, I'm just going to sit in my room and just get through this year instead of live this year. Right.
Yeah. And that was a tough reality. And I think you kind of put it perfectly. Is like, yeah, I decided to just sit in my room and get through the year rather than embrace it, and it's like, looking back on it, it's like, shoot, dude, I could have probably made some amazing friends. And like, the cool thing is I've connected with kids that I met in Huntington.
Yeah.
Now, and like, oh my gosh, we've had some great times together, but it's just like back then I wasn't willing to embrace it, and wow, I mean, you kind of blew my mind with that. It's like, yeah, it's a lot of times I feel like we do things and we go into the mindset of like, dude, let me just get through this rather than like, hey, let's embrace this experience. And that's one thing that I definitely preach is about, there's no good or bad experience, because at the end of the day, you're going to learn something from it. And if it wasn't what you wanted, I guarantee you came out of it a better person.
100%.
And like, that's why, as much as I would hands down say that might've been one of the worst years I went through, I guess mentally you would say too, it was just tough. And I just wasn't having fun, I guess, that year. It's maybe one of the best years that I had to get me to where I am today.
Absolutely.
It was something that wasn't great. Something really cool came out of it. So it was, 100%. It was definitely an experience.
Oh, I'm sure it sounds like it. I can't even imagine, man. Like,
and the toughest thing, it's not only was I a senior in high school, and now it's like, okay, cool, let me hang out with kids my age. So
I was going to say, you said you keep saying you're 16. I was 18 when I graduated high school.
Yeah, I know. Because so in Cyprus, we start a year younger. My mom actually wanted to hold me back a year. But due to NCAA reasons, because a lot of football players, I guess, their parents will hold them back a year just so that they can get bigger for college. They said that my clock would start if I had gotten held back a year. Looking back now, I heard that there's other ways around it.
Sure.
But we didn't know any better at the time. Yeah. It's like within 3 weeks, we got to figure all this stuff out, right?
Yeah, just trying to do your best. Yeah.
And so that didn't work out. But the issue is, in California, in order to graduate from California high school, there's certain classes you need to take. So like, you need to take your health, your earth science, this and that. I hadn't taken any of those back home. So I was sitting in freshman classes all year as well. I maybe took, I took English with seniors. I took physics because I chose that as an elective, and chemistry. Those were the only 3 senior classes I had like all year. And then I'm like trying to fill in with all these freshman and sophomore classes so I can graduate. It was a very tough, looking back on it, it's just, I can't help but laugh on it because it's just like, dude, what a year that was. That was crazy.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine being in freshman classes as a senior. I would have been,
yeah.
And like everyone would have been like nervous to talk to you, but you were probably the one nervous talking to them because you don't know, it's like a role reversal. Literally, and like you said, it's not like you said it, like I would never guess, hey, you're not from California. Like, oh, this kid just transferred in. Like, that's it,
always. And everyone's just like, whenever I tell people around here, is like, James, nah, you're from California, dude. I'm like, I literally spent 9 months in California. Yeah. I have spent more time. It's not getting that close, but like out of the time in the US, I've been 7 years in Hawaii already, and I was only 9 months in California. Like, if you want to relate to me, to any part of the US, relate me to Hawaii at least,
Yeah, of course. So let's get to Hawaii. So you're at Hawaii. How you talk about the performance anxiety. I mean, those first couple of years. I mean, did the partying get the best of you? I mean, for me, it did. I mean, freshman year, geez.
Freshman 20 is a real thing. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, right. I decided to take the opportunity to embrace every moment in college. I was like, sweet, let's do. Can't say no to anything fun, right?
Yeah, right.
Disclaimer, never did drugs, but I did party a lot.
Okay. Good for you. Honestly,
I'm
good
being
for you,
very
man.
honest about it. And I actually have a YouTube video explaining kind of like that whole process of where drinking became a little more of dealing with, and I'll talk about it, dealing with my position on the team rather than it was for fun. And so my freshman, you want to talk about more stuff that happens in California, right? So, because I got to back up because it's part of the Hawaii story. So during my high school season, so between January and June, because it honestly took that long for them to diagnose it. When I was playing for high school ball, my right hand would go ice cold and I would just go numb. And we couldn't figure out why for the longest time. First of all, they thought it was tendonitis. Then they thought it was first they thought it was tendonitis in my shoulder because I had pain in my shoulder. Then the pain went to my elbow. They thought it was tendonitis in my elbow. Then the pain went to my wrist. They thought it was tendonitis in my wrist. Then it came back to my shoulder. And they're like, all right, this is maybe a little bit more serious than we thought. And this whole process is like 4 months of in and out of physical therapy for all these different injuries. And I pretty much lose blood circulation to my right hand. And it got to the point where we're just like, okay, it's definitely something more serious than just tendonitis. So we went to an arm specialist about it. And they're like, it might be something called thoracic outlet syndrome. And so for people that don't know, thoracic, and it's a lot more common than people think in overhead athletes. Thoracic outlet syndrome is pretty much when either an artery, vein, or a nerve, mostly in your brachial branch, which kind of goes all through here. And then it goes under your clavicle, but also sometimes under a first rib. And it goes under your scalene muscles, which are a bunch of these muscles right here that get tight very easily, obviously, and can really push on them. So it's when one of those gets impinged due to either your first rib or tight muscles, that restricts either blood flow to and from the arm, or it impinges a nerve and you get nerve damage. And so I did 5 different tests, and one of them was a 3-hour, test where pretty much they used an ultrasound, and I would go through different movements, lifting and holding and isolating, and they would just use an ultrasound to see the blood flow of my arteries. And that was pain, but that didn't really show anything other than when my hand went over my head, I would lose circulation in my hand. And so they're like, oh, you probably have thoracic outlet syndrome. And we were at UCLA and they're like, okay, we got to schedule you for surgery because we don't have any openings except the day before I'm supposed to fly for Hawaii.
No. Oh my God. Wow.
So, all right, let's book the surgery. Yeah. But before all that, they were like, we need to do one more test just to make sure. And so I did a angiogram, which is kind of where they go through your groin and just with a camera, check all your arteries.
Oh, yeah.
And they found a blood clot in my, I need to go back and look on it, but it was either my anterior or posterior circumflex artery. And that kind of like stopped all the blood flow to my arm.
Oh,
so
shit.
The doctors were like, stop everything and anything you were doing, or you might lose your arm.
Wow.
I was like, okay, sweet.
Yeah.
And so the day after that, I fly to Cyprus for my vacation for 3 weeks. I'm in Cyprus for 3 weeks. I'm not allowed to do any form of exercise.
Surprised you're allowed to fly.
Huh?
I'm surprised you're allowed to.
That was actually one of their issues. They were like, honestly, flying is there's a threat to flying, but you might be okay. So I was like, all right, I'll take the chances.
Got it.
And so while I'm in Cyprus, I'm eating all this amazing Greek food, but I'm not allowed to exercise, put on some weight, come back, have the surgery. So I fly back. I think we flew back on the 11th. I had surgery on the 12th and I left for Hawaii on the 13th of August. Yeah. And so I came into college fresh with surgery. So I decided that year, I was like, I don't know how this recovery is going to go. Thank God it was only, I want to say it was about a 2-month recovery process. Instead of if I were to do this thoracic outlet surgery, which they were originally going to take out my first rib because they thought that's what was blocking the blood flow.
Oh, wow.
It would have been a 6 to 9 month recovery process. So I decided to redshirt. And it was tough because at the time it's like everyone's already going at open gym. They're getting to know each other as players. They're getting to know everyone as teammates. And like, I kind of would just sit at the sidelines and watch. So that was obviously very tough. So I didn't really get as close with everyone in the beginning. And then got into the whole practice group, but I hadn't played volleyball in like 4 months, you know? So like we had one of the top, after Long Beach, we had the top recruiting class that year. And we came in with 12 freshmen, I think it was. By the time we graduated, only 7 of us actually had stayed, but 12 freshmen, right? And I come back to practice maybe October, right, as we were starting 20 hours. And obviously I was definitely at the bottom of the chain when it comes to talent on our team. And so I was just like, dude, this is tough. And like, I was barely getting playing time at practice. I would go through the drills that we do in the hour, but when we got to the 6-on-6 stuff, I was pretty much wiping sweat and calling lines on the sideline, you know? And like, it's not easy to go through that as a player. And it's like, okay, if I'm not getting the chance to play, like, how am I ever going to prove myself, you know? And so freshman year was pretty tough. And I actually think I almost got cut because they started making cuts at Christmas. I almost got cut. I believe I was about to get cut. But I read the book, The Secret, over that Christmas break. And it talked all about the manifestation and all this kind of stuff.
I'm gonna stop you. Right. I'm glad you read the book.
The documentary does not do the book justice.
Yeah. If anyone's seen the documentary and you like it, please read the book. It's so much better. It's way more realistic. It's one of my favorite books. So I'm gonna cut you off, but it's incredible. But read the book.
I totally agree.
Documentary is kind of bullshit.
Pointed that out because I tell everyone, I'm like, if you hate reading, like there is a documentary, but it doesn't do it justice.
But it might hook you a little bit to watch it or to read it.
You know, so I would highly recommend the book as well. It's in my top 3 books that I've ever read. So I read that and I was like, dude, this makes a lot of sense, you know, because I got into the whole mindset of, damn, maybe I'm just not good, you know? And it's like, no, I mean, I've had coaches tell me that I could be really good, but I started losing that belief in myself. And so I read the book, The Secret, and I was like, okay, dude, let's just start going to practice with a better attitude. Because it got to the point where it's like, I was like, why am I even here? You know, and I was just like, something that I loved becomes something that I just regretted going to and waking up for every morning to go to practice. I'm just like, I don't feel like standing on the sidelines. So I read the book and no joke. And I tell this to everyone. I'm like, I would walk from our dorms to the Stan Sheriff Center, which is our facility. There's like this back dirt road that goes along the practice football field and the softball stadium. And then you kind of get on a road. So I would walk that at 6 a.m. and I'd literally just repeat myself the entire time. You're going to pass good. You're going to hit good. You're going to serve good. You're going to pass good. You're going to hit good. You're going to serve good, you know? And without any extra exercise, without any extra reps or anything, I started serving from like 55 miles an hour to 63 to 65 miles an hour. My coach was just like, okay, we can probably use that some
keep
point,
this kid around. Yeah.
And like, it wasn't that I trained any harder. It's just, I started believing in myself, you know? And that positive self-talk. And it was just like, damn, this is kind of cool. And so my role started to change on the team and they're like, all right, we'll probably use you later on, but I still redshirting, so I couldn't do much. And then sophomore year rolls around. And I was like, okay, sweet. Now I get an opportunity to actually play, you know? So still, you know, I was always like right there with everyone, but definitely always at the bottom of the chain. I wasn't as athletic as everyone. I was a little heavier than everyone. But I could serve really good. So that year I was mostly a serving sub and I was okay with it because I was like, you know what, sophomore year, first year playing, whatever.
Yeah. That's not
Junior
bad,
year
right?
rolls around and I'm like, okay, sweet. Now I got a little bit more opportunity. We had graduated, some of the guys that had been there for 4 or 5 years, you know, more opportunity, more this, but same thing my junior year. It was go through all the drills for the first hour, hour and a half, and then sit on the sidelines and call lines and wipe sweat. And the hardest part I would say was like, I was pretty much wiping sweat of guys that I came in with in the program. And I was just like, dude, you know, first year, second year, I get it. But like third year, it's like some kind of opportunity would have been nice.
Right.
And so I fell in this pit of like, what's the point anymore? You know, like at this point, I went and had a conversation with our assistant coach at the time. I was like, honestly, I kind of get where I stand at this point. I'm going to just focus a lot more on school and I'll show up at practice and do what you need me to do. But like too, don't expect too much out of me.
If you're not getting a shot,
it mentally drained me, questioning why and why and why am I not getting the same opportunity as other people? Because I felt, and this is where I want to be very transparent with it, and this is kind of how I went with everything, because I felt like I was as good as everyone and I tried as hard as everyone, but I was never given the opportunity. And I was just like, I'd always blame my coach or this situation or that situation or this situation for everything, where honestly, in reality, I wasn't working as hard as in the situation I was in. I wasn't working as hard as I should have.
Yeah, sorry we lost you guys. We had a little connection breakup, but basically, we're talking about how, I'm going to interject a little bit too. So I had a similar situation. I went to play college volleyball. Freshman year, didn't get any opportunities. Sophomore year, didn't get any opportunities. And I felt like I belonged and I should deserve a chance, just like how James is saying. And to be honest, I left at that point. I was there to play volleyball. Like that was it, So I understand what you're saying. And so you're talking about the opportunity. It's like junior year, I'm going to focus on school. Right. So,
yeah,
just walk me through that a little bit again.
So yeah, it's just like, I was like, all right. And at that time I hadn't had a conversation with my coach about it.
Okay.
But I pretty much had a conversation with myself and I was like, you know what? Screw the whole volleyball thing. If that's going to start making your school grades bad, at least focus on school. Cause you can do good at that, So that year I actually had the best. I had the 2 best GPAs I ever had my entire school career, I guess you could say, or through my education. I'm the 2 best GPAs, but I'd probably say I was in the worst shape of my life, because shoot, I knew how to sacrifice one thing for the other.
Yeah.
And I was like, if this isn't working, school's going to work really well for me. So, it was tough. And I had gone through situations where it's just I wasn't even making the travel team, and people that I think I deserved a little bit more to travel over, were traveling. And the thing that I always kept with myself is and my coach has always told me is at least, I was always that great teammate and the energy guy. And no matter what anyone needed, I was always there for them. I was always bringing the energy at practice, but it gets to the point where it's James, we need you to bring the energy. And I'm like, dude, fine. But sometimes it's I got to think about myself as well,
Right.
It's
you can't just give and never.
I can't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And never get anything back. And that's mentally draining. And even physically, it drains your energy at practice. And you're just okay, now I can't focus on what I need to do to improve. Right. So that was just exhausting to go through. And it's just one of those things that it was only seen when it could be seen, and it wasn't always appreciated. I feel not from everyone, but from certain people. And that junior year, I almost got kicked off of the team because of this. I can't really give the full story.
That's fine.
But I got into an argument with one of our teammates.
Okay. And
then coaches heard about it. I get called down to the office because I had said that I didn't believe we were going to beat a certain team. And coach pretty much, this is where I kind of fell in a big pit. Coach pretty much told me if I had to reconsider my position on the team and whether I still wanted to be there. And I was like, dude, for 3 years now, I've literally dedicated everything I have. And I've been energetic and nothing but supportive to all these teammates. And because I just said that if we continue the way we're going, I don't think we can beat a certain team. You're going to question my commitment to this team, And I was just that pissed me off. That made me super mad. And, it's just all right, sweet, here we go again. Yep. So that's where I was just you know what, screw this, screw that. And then that's where I would say when the team would leave, me and one of my buddies, we'd just sit and drink and play Fortnite all day.
Yeah.
Also not healthy, but it's just I was so mad at the whole situation that I just let it out on drinking and partying. And I was just well, shoot, I got to have a good time on my own. I'm just going to go and party and drink, so that became super unhealthy.
Right.
So that year was just super tough for me because I was just damn, dude, do I even continue this? Do I transfer? Do I stay? Do I just quit volleyball? And all this. And that's where going into my senior year, I kind of had a self-talk with myself and I was all right, let's sit and have big boy talk, right? Realistically, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't want to be another guy that rolls through this program just being another guy that walked the bench.
Yep.
I kind of wanted to give it another shot. I wanted to prove myself because I was like, I know that I could be a good volleyball player. I just need to prove it. And that's where I kind of had to admit to myself, like, were you really giving 100%? Were you really doing the things that you were supposed to be doing in order to play volleyball? Right.
Right.
Probably not. And so that summer, I pretty much researched because I had gained 30 pounds that year. I went from like maybe 215 to like 245.
Okay.
And I was like, all right, dude, I need to lose some weight and I need to get as athletic as I humanly can. So I looked up that summer. I was like, Google, how to lose weight fast. What exercise do I need to do to increase my
vert? Laugh, but
God, what's the best diet to lose weight, right? And then I can move on keto diet, intermittent fasting, HIIT workouts. And then I found a jump trainer in Washington to help me with my vert. So I was like, all right, sweet. Let's combine everything. So for that whole summer, I pretty much woke up. What time did I work? I worked at 7. So I would wake up at 6 in the morning. I'd go and do my internship for hours to apply to PT school, which is what I wanted to do originally before COVID. So I went and did my hours at a physical therapy clinic that I worked from 7 to 12. I would go to jump training on Mondays and Wednesdays. Right after that, I would go home. I would eat my keto meal because I would only eat from 12 to 8. I would eat my keto lunch. I would go back to the gym for 2-3 hours, come home, eat my keto dinner, and go to sleep and repeat. Right.
Hey, for people that don't know, like, what do you eat? I mean, what do you eat? I mean, keto, high fat, mediocre, so high protein, fat, no carbs,
high
basically.
Fat, protein, low carb diet.
So what are you eating though? Like, what are you eating? Because I know even that could be like, hey, I'm just gonna eat protein, neglect fat.
So I pretty much just ate. I had downloaded at the time. Well, at that time, I wasn't so strict about it when I first started off, right? Because the way that I looked at it, I was like, oh, I can eat bacon, burger, steak, and all this. All I got to do is throw out the buns, the rice, the potatoes, anything starchy, right? I just had to throw that away. And you can eat as much as you want of it and I'll lose weight. Just like, bet. So I literally just kind of like, let me see if I have easy access to it. I don't know where it is right now, but I actually still have the book. I had a book and I wrote down a list of this is what keto friendly foods are. That's all you can eat, right? So I pretty much just ate meat and vegetables for the most part, but only cruciferous. I need to remember what the word is, but it's pretty much green vegetables and meat.
Oh, cruciferous.
That one.
There you go.
Cruciferous vegetables.
I was a trainer for a little bit. I have a little bit of a background in this. So like, honestly, your story, man, I can't wait to kind of.
Yeah. So I was like, as long as I'm eating this, I'm going to lose weight. And at the time, it's like, I wasn't counting macros. I wasn't counting calories. I wasn't counting anything. And granted, within a month and a half, 2 months, I lost 30 pounds. Poof, gone. Right. And I went from maybe 20+% body fat down to, at that time, I think I was close to like 6, 7. And like that was over the summer. Yeah. Increase my vert 6 inches, lose 30 pounds. But my literal summer entailed of work, gym, eat, gym, sleep. Again, no social life. Gave up drinking. I didn't drink a sip of alcohol for that entire time. I did celebrate it when I got to college because I was like, shoot, all my friends, let's go get drunk, blah, blah, have a good time, Celebrated it for a bit, but then I fell back into the whole pit of when I got to college, everyone's like, dude, you look so good. How did you do it? Blah, blah, all this, all that. I step into the practice gym. I'm by far in the greatest shape of anyone on the team. My volleyball at the time was amazing because I played grass volleyball all summer, but I was like finally athletic enough that I could showcase my talent. And all this. And I was just like, dude, this is awesome.
It worked.
Let's keep going and let's go even more strict. Because when everyone was just like, dude, like, what were your macros? How many calories were you eating? And all this. I was just like, dude, I don't know. I was just eating these certain foods, but I mean, everyone's asking. So I guess I need to give them an answer, right? So I downloaded MyFitnessPal, started counting, started all this kind of stuff. And I had made a promise to myself at the time. I was like, when I get to college, I know I can't continue this. So we're going to start eating more carbs, more this, more that. But I fell in the trap of, hey, this worked for me. So when I started eating more carbs, I would weigh myself every morning. Right. And every time I ate carbs, scale went up. I was like, damn, I'm getting fat again. Got to cut them out.
It's just this.
Thank you. No one knows that it's water weight because
water.
carbs absorb water in your body.
Damn.
You know, you don't magically put on 10 pounds overnight of fat. And it's like, the sad part is I was doing my bachelor's of science kinesiology, and I should have known better, but it's just like something finally worked for me in the past 4 years of trying to prove, that I was just like, I can only stick to this. So, I pretty much started counting my calories. I started trying to eat certain foods and this and that, and the whole stress of it's very hard to explain, but the whole stress of trying to keep all of that together while being in school, going to practice, lifting weights, doing your homework. And then now you're also like, oh, let me weigh every single thing that I'm putting in me. It's so time consuming that it's nearly impossible for anyone to do that if you're trying to relive a regular life.
Are you doing IF too at the time?
What was that?
Are you fasting at the time too?
I was fasting at the time too. So I was getting to that. So it's like, I was even going to practice. We had practice from 6 to 8:30 and then weights right after, and then school all day. And like, I remember there was times where I'd legit be sitting in class and like, I'm starving, I'm lightheaded, but I wouldn't eat because I was like, I can only eat at 12 o'clock. How much time do we have? And like, when I was in a practice, the only thing I was thinking about is what am I going to eat next? How am I going to eat it? Where am I going to find this certain food that I can only put in my body? Right. And I would legit suck on halls. If I got to the point where it's like, I was that hungry, it's like, I would suck on halls, just kind of like
it's a little
suppress my appetite.
Yeah.
Until 12 o'clock, and that just took a huge mental toll on me. And it's just like, I wasn't happy anymore. I wasn't seeing friends. I wasn't going out and hanging out with my buddies because I knew that if I went to that social event, there was going to be certain things that didn't fit my diet, or if it's like, I'm not going to go and eat burgers with you guys. If you guys are going to go to friggin' like Teddy's or Betty's, which is 2 of the burger joints that we have right here around campus. Why would I go and waste my time putting burgers in me if I've worked so hard to get to where I am? Or like, even let's be realistic, right? Hey, let's go to the bar tonight. It's like, why would I go to the bar if all I'm going to do is put empty calories in me, and it's going to destroy me from waking up feeling good and going to the gym the next day and all that kind of stuff. It's like, I don't really remember going out at all my senior year. And I'll never forget where it kind of got bad is I was sitting in my Psych 101 class, and we were going over the signs and symptoms of anorexia. And I was like, oh, dude, I have that. I do that. I definitely feel that way. I do that. I feel that. I was like, damn, dude, maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe I'm not okay. And so I remember sitting out of class for an hour that next day, and I was just like, am I really okay? And so I called my mom at the time, and I was like, hey, Mom, I really need to come home for Thanksgiving. I'm just not happy. I'm not doing anything. I'm super exhausted all the time. At that time, my performance started declining as well, right? And that's something that a lot of people don't really understand. When you're malnourishing your body, you might look good, and I put that in quotations, or like, dude, you have all this muscle, but it's like, you're weak. We were maxing out, and I didn't hit my max outs, would get less and less every time we maxed out. And talk about another whole stress, right? It's like, I'm doing all these things right, but I can't push any weight anymore. I'm not lifting heavy. I can't do this. Like, what's wrong? Like, why is anything going my way anymore?
And you're catabolic now too. So like, it's just,
yeah. It got to the point where I'm going to be very realistic on this podcast. I think I'm messing it once before to like podcast or something, but it's like, it gets to the point where it's like, even your hormones, right? It's like, I had zero sex drive for 8 months.
Yep.
8 months, no sex drive, just because your hormones get so jacked up, because your body is pretty much in a starving state.
Right.
It is at that point, and I'll never forget, someone gave me that example. It's like, your body is trying to survive, not live. It's just trying to survive at that point. And I was like, I would maybe burn 6,000 to 7,000 calories a day, and I was only eating 1,800.
Jesus.
Because I would train, we would lift. If we didn't have team lifts, I would lift on my own for 3 hours. And even if we had team lifts, I would lift with the team, go to 2.5 hour, 3 hour practice, and then lift on my own for 2 to 3 hours. Like my life was in the gym.
Yeah.
You know, and it takes a huge toll on you. I was like, I look great. I put that in quotation.
Yeah.
Looking back on the pictures, I was just like, whoa. Honestly, I think, and I gave this example. I think this past like month or 2 months was the first time I went back and looked on a couple of pictures, and I was just like, damn, I was really that little. Like, it kind of blew my mind.
Has anyone noticed, like at this point, is anyone saying anything to you? Like, hey man, you might have a problem, or what's going on? Like anyone?
There was one person, and I love him to death. His name's Hiro. He was one of our athletic trainers, and he came to us. So that 2019 season that I lost all this weight and everything, right? He came with us on a trip to Japan because we were very fortunate enough that our school managed. Yeah, they took us to Japan. We played a bunch of Japanese college teams, and a pro team, and just kind of see, hey, what can we learn from them, and where do we compare with Japanese colleges, right? And I grabbed him around my shoulder, and I was like, Hiro, show me everything about Japan, because like I love cultures. I love learning about new cultures, and he had grown up maybe an hour away from where we were, and I was like, Hiro, I want to know everything, right? And so me and him spent a lot of time together, and he started noticing all these just like little habits that I had that were unusual. And we're walking down the street one day, and he looks at me, he's just like, James, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm fine. What are you talking about? He's like, are you sure you're okay? I was like, yeah. It's like, well, all right, if you ever need to talk to anyone, dude, like, you know, I'm here for you. I was like, all right, cool. And like at the time, I didn't know, because I didn't know. Right. But like looking back on it, it's just like, damn, dude, he really cared, and he could tell. And it's like, yeah. So I guess I did have, and then my roommate now, her name's Femke. She was a water polo player at the time, and she was just like, it was tough because at the time, like, I didn't know what to say. And I guess that's a very hard, it's like, what do you say at that point, right? And she's just like, everyone was giving you all these compliments, but I was just like, damn, dude, he's looking way too skinny, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's tough because not really anyone did say anything. But that's the hard part, is it's a very hard thing to recognize, because a lot of people idolize looking shredded.
Oh yeah.
But it comes with a cost, and it's just like, it's not worth, in my eyes. Right. Sure. And I need to make this disclaimer. I am no professional in this field. I am just someone that had gone through the experience of like just falling for that side of your life, you know, where you start to fear food, and you don't really want to put food in your body and all that kind of stuff, because you want to look a certain way, or because it's something that worked for me. It's like, I'm no professional in how to come out of it. I just went through that experience. So I can only talk about my experience and my story, and just saying, like, I chose happiness over the way I looked. You know, I just wasn't happy at the time at all. And so when I went home, back to that whole story, right? My mom, I went and talked to my mom, and I was like, Mom, not okay. I'm not eating. I feel like on this roller coaster of, I know what I need to do, but I just can't make myself do it. And my mom looked at me, and she was just like, I'd honestly rather have 40 pounds heavier, happy you, than this not happy kid that I don't even know who is, you know? And that's something that kind of stuck with me forever.
Yeah.
But like at the same time, coming out of that, it's such a roller coaster of trying to fix those habits. You know, you'd start eating more and eating more diverse foods and eating carbs and all this, but then I'd step on a scale a week later, and I'm like, damn, I put on some weight. And then you start declining again, and then you start eating more and then less, and it was tough.
Absolutely.
Very tough thing to come out of. And it's not up until like this summer where it's just like, I can finally say, it's like, dude, do I still have those thoughts of like, should I really be eating this right now? Yeah, but I've learned how to understand the situation I'm in. I'm just like, shoot, sometimes you just need it, dude. And that's totally okay. And that's just how I want to live my life.
Yeah.
And so that stress that came on with constantly worrying about what I was eating really took away from volleyball.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because instead of being in the practice gym, maybe working on passing or hitting, I was in the weight room worrying about, let me get my bicep to peak as much as it can, or let me get my six pack to be popping as much as I can, like it totally shifted. Like, and it wasn't what I should have been doing at the time if volleyball was what I wanted to do.
Right.
But I was blindsided. I didn't know any better. No one told me any better. And so I was like, if I'm putting all this extra work in the weight room, why am I not seeing the results in the practice gym, and where my coach was just like, okay, now we're giving someone that preached about the people that work hard and the people that do things right are the ones that are going to get the chances. Didn't really stick to that word because I still never got the same chances that I believe I should have been given.
Right.
And that's where the sports anxiety and like the performance anxiety kicked in, because I was just like, okay, I can't make errors. Every time I walked onto the court, I felt like I was trying to prove myself to someone else rather than play for myself.
A lot of pressure.
So like, I'll never forget, like, get put into the games, like heart goes. It's like, dude, I can't make an error. Like all these eyes are on me. Everyone's watching. Like if I make this error, I'm going to get subbed out, blah, blah. And it's just like, holy moly, dude. If only people learn how to deal with that. And the best part is, after taking a year off, because I managed the team for that 21 season, because my super senior year, so a year after that, we had graduated everyone that was in my class. So out of those 8 guys that stayed, 4 of them had graduated, and then 3 of us were super seniors. So we stayed. So like now a position in my spot opens up. And it's like, oh, sweet, I finally got my opportunity. And so definitely a lot more opportunity there. And then COVID kind of stopped my career. But like still, even that last season that I had with the team, it's like every time I went in, I was just like, okay, I need to prove myself to everyone else instead of play for myself, and play lose. So it's something that I didn't know at the time how to overcome. And my parents always told me, like, people always told me, is like, when you play loose, you play well. But there was times just like, I knew I'm just like, I'm way too much in my head about it.
Yeah.
And I constantly felt like, oh, I need to prove myself to all these other people instead of like, hey, just take care of your game and do it for you. And so when COVID hit, career ends.
Yeah.
I'm contemplating, me and the other seniors are talking, like, do we come back? Do we not? Because this one, everyone was just like, all right, everyone gets their year back. You can come, same scholarship, whatever. So we were contemplating, and it's like, do we come back? Do we not? And the other 3 had made the decision to come back and play. And I was like, dude, look, I'll come back because I love you guys, but I don't know if I can do another year of just trying to prove. I was just like, I was exhausted trying to prove myself and all this. Now, the cool thing with taking the year off, but still being there, you get to see everything from an outsider's perspective. And it's like, we would come home and like my teammates would argue to me about this and that and about the drama here and the drama there. I'm just like, dude, if only you guys can see it from where I am and how silly a lot of this stuff is, it's insane. So it's like, honestly, I tell everyone, if you can take a year off your sport, but still be around it, you can learn so much.
Oh yeah.
So like now that I'm playing in this like BLA league, I wouldn't say the competition's any easier. Like I'm still playing against every single person on my team, at least has gone and played pro in Europe.
Right.
Everyone that we've played against played D1 somewhere. So it's like the level is still there.
Top tier. Oh yeah.
Guys that I didn't really get to compete against in college because I wasn't a starter, but now I'm getting to compete against them. And I've learned how to like, why do we get anxious? And like, that's an answer that I still don't know, but it's like something that's like, when you really learn how to take a step back. And I took a sports psych class, which helped me a lot.
Yeah.
How to control your breathing, how to just, whatever happens, like it's kind of cool to see the other perspective of it. And the outsider of like, how did I used to let myself get so bottled up, and it's really hard because God, I don't know how to explain that,
Right.
like, and I don't think a lot of people really know or can explain why it happens. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool that I learned,
Oh
and I don't know
yeah.
how. I just seeing it from other perspective gave me a lot of perspective of one error is not going to dictate who you are, or one mistake isn't going to dictate who you are the rest of your life. You're always going to get all these other opportunities.
Oh yeah.
So,
The pressure's off now.
yeah. And I guess that's the hardest part, is like pressure's off of.
You're not trying to prove yourself. I mean, there's obviously pressure, but it's not the same.
It's not. And I guess that's a good way to put it, right? And I had my own personal thing where it's like I kept feeling like I had to prove myself to our coach. And like, I guess his validation never really allowed me to be who I want to be. Right. And now that I've escaped that, or like I'm just not part of that anymore, and I've just learned, like, dude, you don't need validation from other people. You validate yourself, and that's all you need in life. Or because sometimes I feel like, yeah, it's normal where we'll slip off, and you need that really good friend to tell you, like, hey, dude, I know that it's not easy, but we need to figure a way out of this, right? So it's like, at least either your close friends to help you guide and help you out through things. But at the end of the day, like, everything you do, you got to be doing it for yourself. And I think that's 100%. Something that a lot of us don't do anymore. We're constantly trying to prove ourselves on social media. We're trying to prove ourselves because I want to be better than that guy, or I want to be better than you, or I need to do more than he's doing. It's like, no, you don't. You need to be doing what you want to do and what makes you happy. So at the end of the day, it's like, okay, cool, you're going to get that validation. And I guess this goes back to my biggest issue is like, okay, I finally got the 6-pack. Now I want the 8-pack. Every time you validate something for someone else, there's going to always be something else.
Oh yeah.
And I think another huge issue that I see kind of like with people nowadays is we don't take the time to enjoy the little successes we have in life. So like for me, right, it's like I finally got to a point that I wanted to get to physically. I didn't take the time to enjoy it and really celebrate that huge goal that I had. Instead, I got greedy and I was like, no, I need more, and I need more, and I need more, and I need more. And at some point, like, you can't get any more. But like, I was so greedy and I needed.
You're never going to be satisfied.
Pound. I need to get that much more physical. I need to be able to push that much more weight. It's like, nah, dude, there's a balance in everything. And if you don't have that balance, there's not going to be any structure to all of it. So,
100%. Well, everything you're saying too, you're saying you don't know why it's like this now, but I mean, I think it comes with experience. Like you said earlier, I mean, we go through some tough stuff, and through that experience, like you say, I'm not a professional, you're not professional in this space, but through our experiences is how we're able to help people and kind of saying our stories that, you going through all that, now you understand balance, so that you can kind of help others maybe not make that mistake you made, with not having any balance, things like that. And the pressure, like I think about myself, and, when I felt like I wasn't getting my opportunity, when I left to go to just go to normal school, like we play in like club tournaments, and I played so good. It was like, and when I was coaching, you play against the kids and it's like, damn, you're pretty good. It's like, yeah, I never played in college, I never got my shot, but like, you just feel loose, you don't have that pressure that you're putting on yourself, but also that validation of, I'm busting my ass and still not getting a shot, So like, what else can I do? So when you get in, I totally understand that. Like, I'd make the travel roster and it's like, oh man, if I get in, I better do good, or this is never going to happen again. So you're playing tense. So you're probably not playing well. Right. So
no,
yeah, it's crazy thing, man. And two, going back to what you said about, looking back, I myself, I remember it was probably like my senior year. It's kind of funny how it's correlated. My 5th year at school, we had like the last semester, I decided to stay on campus and do my internship because, stay in school, hang out with my boys still, not be at home. Offense, I I enjoyed being away from home. So,
Yeah.
but, and I was always a lean guy, real lean guy, tall, lean, but I wanted to get leaner. And I remember because I was into this, supplements, and in college, man, shit, I don't even know if they were anabolics, but I probably took some, back when I played, you used to be able to get like SARMs is kind of the thing now.
Yeah.
But like pro hormones were a thing when I played. And like, I took them. I didn't care if it affected my volleyball. I was just trying to get as big as possible, as strong as possible, thinking it would help with sports. But then that became the obsession.
Yeah.
And then I think about, like, man, when you said about intermittent fasting, it's, because I was a trainer for a few years, and I was really big on intermittent fasting because it helped me a lot. But what you're saying, man, it hits home. I would just sit there and wait for noon, 2, 10, whatever it was. And you sit there and like, I remember having these massive panic attacks because my blood sugar was so low. And it's like, dude, why don't you just eat? If you would have ate an hour earlier, you're not losing any more weight. But it's crazy because I think a lot of people, and whenever I brought it up to people, even nowadays, when people bring up intermittent fasting, I'll be like, hey, like if I know they're maybe an obsessive person or, have a lot of anxiety, it's like, go for it. But really, you can't be strict with it. If you're that strict with it, it's going to become a problem where you're not going to eat at 11:58 because you want to wait that 2 minutes. And I remember having those moments, and man, it hit home, man. I can relate to you. And I think a lot of people can. I didn't think I had an eating disorder, but maybe I did. And as a man,
that's the tough part where
crazy.
I'm also still learning about all this.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a very fine line between disordered eating, because disordered eating and eating disorders are like two completely different things.
Okay.
Where honestly, a lot of people do have symptoms of disordered eating nowadays, because that's kind of what the health and fitness industry
rules, all these rules.
Yeah. And it's just like, dude, what happened to living our lives?
Mm-hmm.
It's just tough because there's definitely a fine line between both of them. It's like, yeah, you shouldn't always be going overboard with one thing, but you shouldn't be going overboard with the other end of the spectrum.
Balance.
It's like, where's the balance? And I'm huge on it. It's like the Hawaiian word is pono, for balance, and it's like, that's something that I've kept with me for so long nowadays. Cause I'm just like, at the end of the day, dude, you get one shot at life, and there's so much more worries in the world than these little things that a lot of times we tend to like worry about. Mm-hmm. And this brings up a great thing that I started to live by as well. I remember we were at Target with my mom, and we were looking for like those year journals, right? It's like, we all go through that. Okay, it's time to make another change, like what's the new thing we all go through,
Yep.
And so I was like, sweet, let's get a journal. Let's like start journaling and this and that. And I picked up this one journal, and it was really interesting. It was 1 question a day for 5 years. So,
wow.
It's 365 pages with the same question on each page, and it's 1 through 5. But each year you answer the same question.
Interesting.
Honestly, a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, that is kind of cool.
The first page that I opened to, and it was during the time where I was kind of like struggling with my eating and all this kind of stuff and that. And I opened the first page I opened to in the middle of the book. It said, is what you're worrying about now going to matter in a year? And that question blew my mind.
Yeah, dude.
No, because so often
seriously,
we worry about all of these things that come a month, 2, 3, maybe a year. You're not even going to remember you were worrying about them.
Maybe a day.
Yeah. Even honestly, honestly though.
Wow.
It blew
that's awesome.
My mind. And like, that's kind of like something that stuck with me ever since. And I keep that with whenever I worry about something, I'm like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do about this right now? And the first question I ever ask myself is, do I really have control over this situation? Or is what happened, and I got to deal with what happens from it? You know, I feel like so many times, and this is something with off the court we educate kids with, is like our stress and our energy that we put into things. We have a limited source of that, right? And the more energy you put into things that you don't have control over, and the more energy, and I'm using energy as stress, I guess, right? I just like the word energy a little bit more. The more energy we put into things that we don't have control over, we're taking away all that energy from things that we have control over. And the more we worry about all this kind of stuff, we have way less time to worry about the things that can actually help us improve on ourselves. And we give the very easy example, right? And this goes back to this self-talk that I had to myself. I don't have control over whether I play or not. I do have control over how much better I can become at what I'm trying to do, right? And so that's where up until my junior year, I spent so much energy blaming coaches, blaming this person, blaming that person, blaming that I wasn't really focusing on getting better as a volleyball player. But now when I started focusing on getting better as a volleyball player, I started getting more playing time, you know? So it's kind of like I switched what I was putting more energy into. Now, did I run into other issues trying to become a better volleyball player? Yes, I did, which stopped me from getting to where I could have gotten. But shoot, you live, you learn, right? And so it's kind of like something that I learned from that whole experience was like, what do I really have control over in certain situations? And I'm going to put as much energy as I can into that rather than complain about things that I don't have control over or stress about things that I don't have control over, and it's a lot easier said than done.
I was just gonna say, mate, took the words right out of my mouth.
Much easier said than done. But it's something that I feel like the more we practice, the better it is, you know. And I've talks with all my friends and even both my brothers. Like we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. You know,
good people to be around, man.
I think some of the best therapists you can have are your best friends or your family. You know, because the more you talk, the more they can shine light on, dude, it's not as scary or as serious as it might seem. Or it's like, okay, sweet, you know, I've actually been through this situation and this is how I dealt with it. And maybe this is how I wish I would have dealt with it, you know? So it's tough because it is a lot easier said than done, but it's something that, like anything in life, the more you practice it, the better you're going to become at it.
Oh yeah.
You know? So I've just learned to take a step back instead of automatically letting my feelings and my thoughts take action. I've learned to like, hey, to take a step back. Let's analyze what the situation is. What can I do to make this situation better? Or how can I control the situation better? You know, not completely just always act on what comes first. Takes a lot of patience.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes it's tough.
Oh yeah. Man, you took the words right out of my mouth, man. Honestly, like as soon as you start saying that, I'm like, man, because I like we have very similar, you know, thinking when it comes to that. Like I am this isn't like my job can be high stress, you know, I do with sales, like home improvement sales. So like you got angry customers, you got, you know, lead times you have no control over. When's the material coming in? And like one of my best friends, you know, started working with me. And I told him like, hey, this is going to get stressful. But like once you can start, and like you said, I always tell them it's easier said than done. But once you can start realizing, you know, what stuff can I control? What can't I? Like this stuff is going to be stressful, period. So if you can detach yourself when you know, it's going to become so much easier. You know, yeah, you might piss somebody off or this, but if you can't control it, man, what are you going to do? Like
I kind of love that you said the whole angry customers are like, I mean, you can do something and to you it might seem right, and you're gonna. One other thing that I really had to learn was you're not gonna please everyone,
right?
And I think that's something that a lot of us want to do. I was always a people pleaser, and like that's where I still am. Right. I think that's kind of what stuck me around that team for so long. Is like, dude, I love these guys. Like, I don't want to disappoint them or doubt them or anything, you know?
Right.
Like I just became such a big people pleaser, and I was just like, sometimes you got to learn, like, we don't all think the same. You're not always going to please everybody in this world, but as long as what you're doing sticks to your morals and sticks to what you believe in, some people aren't going to have the same beliefs as you. Some people aren't going to Why am I blanking out? Some people just they're not gonna have the same beliefs. They're not gonna
You might not,
always.
there also might just be in that state of mind. Like no matter what
Yeah.
you say, they might just be pissed. It might
Yeah.
maybe not be at you. Maybe they're pissed at or maybe something bad happened. Maybe their dad just died, or like
Yeah.
I think in extremes like that, just try to give people the benefit of the doubt, even
But
if it's not
so
true, because it's better for me.
It is so
You know?
true, and that's where I always, if someone, and I give this when I coach nowadays,
Mhm.
right? Because I coach the girls 16s club team, and I coach
That could be tough.
I coach clinics everywhere, right?
Yeah, right.
And so it's like the first thing that I do is like, first of all, if something happened in your day, come and talk to me, because it helps me understand how to deal with certain situations in practice.
Yeah.
If you're not doing good, I'm not going to come and yell at you, because I know that your mind is probably stressing about something else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But over time, I also want us to work together and learn how, hey, when you're going to do something, because this is real life, when you're doing something within those 2 hours where you're at practice, you will not be able to fix what's been stressing you or what's been going on outside of your life. How can we learn to be in the moment? And then, hey, together, let's tackle whatever you're stressed about after this.
Love it.
Or before. But that depends on how willing people are coming to talk to you about it, right? So it's just kind of like, even when I'm at practice and a kid doesn't tell me anything, I'm just like, all right, I know that what you're giving me isn't your 100%, or it's not your normal play. I'm not going to drill you on it, but hey, after practice, we're going to have a conversation and figure out like, okay, what's up? Like, I want you to talk to me. I want to help you through the situation. Because shoot, I was 16 years old trying to prove myself to my club coach once. I understand what it's like to be in that situation. I've been through tough days where I had to go to practice and try and compete, and it's just like, I'm just not there. So it's kind of like, I'd rather have people talk to me about it, where it's just like, okay, I'm not going to expect this much from you, but this is what we're going to focus on today. I know that you can at least do this, so I'm huge. I love that you gave that example. And like, honestly, it can be that extreme sometimes. You never know what someone's going through. Like, someone might snap back at you, and dude, maybe they just have so much other stuff going on and they let it out on you. And a lot of times it sucks being that person in that situation, where it's just kind of like, you might've said something where it triggered it, and just like, you're the one getting yelled at. But it's like, sometimes you gotta just take it all in and sit down with them and be like, okay, dude, like, so is anything else going on? Like, let's figure this thing out together. I don't think a lot of people talk enough about their emotions.
No,
and just kind of like their stressors in life. And I love to give the analogy of, we're like a storage. We're like a little memory stick, and stress is the same, right? You're going to end up to the point where your storage is going to run out, and you're just going to have that panic attack or that anxiety attack, or you're just going to like let it all out on someone. And it's, the more you learn to, if you have something stressing you out, talk about it or talk through it with someone, you're deleting that. And you'd never let that memory card like fill up too much. So I always take the time to talk to all my friends about, all right, dude, cool, your life's great, but how are you doing?
Man, well, what you just said too, like, it's going to make you a great coach and make you, continue to be a great coach. Because what you're saying, man, having the empathy with your athletes, they're people, whether they're 13, 25, like, we're all people. And with you being open with them, because that was kind of something when I did with my kids, the players, like, I didn't coach the ones team, like, it wasn't all about volleyball. It was like, hey, but I was open. I was like, hey, man, like, I'm struggling with anxiety. So if you guys like, or depression, whatever it was, and like, you kind of pick up on it with the kids, be like, hey, man, I could tell you're struggling, like you said, hey, let's talk about it after the day. I'm not going to be a hard ass on you today. Like, I'm going to have some empathy, but like, let's figure out what's going on and figure out a way to make this better, or like, get through it. And it goes a long way. I do want to backtrack just a little bit before we kind of get to our last couple of questions. Going back to the eating disorder, did you kind of say you went home, talked to your mom, but was there anything you did? Like, did you go to therapy, coach?
So I worked with a sports nutritionist.
Okay.
His name was Mike Nielsen. And so after talking to my mom, She was like, hey, why don't you reach out to Mike? I mean, he's obviously a sports nutritionist. I believe he is the sports nutritionist still for Gonzaga, but he helped out with Gonzaga basketball and is the strength and conditioning coach for them. And he pretty much was part owners at the time of the clinic that I was getting my hours at.
Oh, cool.
So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, Coach Mike, I'm kind of struggling with my eating. This is kind of like what I'm going through. And we talked on the phone for like an hour. And he was like, yeah, you should probably be doing this and this and that. And he said one thing that really stuck with me. And it's kind of what helped me understand, like, okay, I need to fuel my body. I can't be not fueling my body. He gave the example of, if you're going, you got to treat your body like a car. And if you're going on a 300-mile road trip, but you only put 150 miles of gas in the tank, you're never going to reach your destination. Yeah. You know, so he kind of worked. Yeah, exactly. And that's, for me, that worked for me. And he pretty much, talking to him for a couple months, and like he was like, hey, like every week, just try and eat a little bit more and see how you feel. Like, try and eat a little bit more of carbs. Let's see how you feel, you know, and like just having that support system going through that, and like feeling like, damn, wow, I actually do feel better. You know, like I'm going to practice and I have more energy. Like, that helped me get out of that situation. And then when I stopped being an athlete, which I think helped me a lot more, because even when I was eating a little bit more and like eating carbs and whatnot, that 2020 season, there were still days where it's just kind of like, I wouldn't eat as much as I should be. I was going through this roller coaster, and I tell everyone, like, honestly, like, the recovery process is never linear. It's more of a roller coaster. You're going to have ups, downs, sometimes a lot more downs than ups, but like those little successes, like, you just got to stick with them, and know that what you're doing is for the best. And that's kind of like my mindset, because I kind of got to the point where I educated myself on, like, okay, I do understand that I need to eat more. I understood that this is going to fuel my body to perform better. And at the time, that's what I wanted to do. And then when I stopped being an athlete, that's kind of where I was just like, I could take a mental check and a mental break from being shredded isn't going to help me perform any better. So what's the point of being shredded? You know?
Yeah.
So that helped a lot, I would say, is coming out of the athlete world. Helped a lot with my personal recovery process. But yeah, I mean, I talked to a sports nutritionist for 4 or 5 months about it.
Okay.
And he helped me guide me through the right path of, this is why you need to be fueling your body with all kinds of foods, and why all these foods are going to help you feel and perform better. So yeah, I definitely talked to him, and I was very open with, my mom is my best friend. Like, yeah, I would talk to her all the time about it. So I never saw a therapist for it.
Okay.
Because fortunately enough, right, I never thought I got to that point.
Right.
But I would always be open to talking to them about it.
Of course. Well, it sounds like being vulnerable is kind of what helped you kind of get through it too.
Big time.
I mean, if you just would have tried to grit your teeth and fix it yourself, nothing probably would have happened. You know, being vulnerable, being super open with your mother, you know, with the coach who, I mean, you knew, but it's not like he was your dad, you know? So like being vulnerable with people in anything with mental health in general, like, it's so powerful, man. It's so powerful. It's a sign of strength. It's a sign of, you know, how we heal. Because if you just bottle it up, man, nothing's going to change.
No, that's a good way to put it. It's like bottling up. Nothing will really change. Honestly, that's a good way.
Just won't. I mean, you gotta, you know, it's like, I gotta, you know, it's going to be uncomfortable. Like, I got a little, not a mural, but like when I work, it's like, you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yep.
You know, it's cliche, but it's true. Like, if you want to grow or break through something, you have to do something, whether it's depression, eating disorder. Like, you know, I suffer with a lot of, I say suffer. I have a lot of depression, anxiety, but like, if I just sit and do nothing, nothing's going to change. I'm not going to feel my best. If I don't feel my body, do the exercise, you know, do everything I can, I'm going to feel like shit. And I can't blame anyone for it except myself.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel you with that. And that's where it's kind of like being uncomfortable and and being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like how I said in the beginning, you know, is like accepting change.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I have my whole theory of like, I think as humans, one of our biggest fears is change, because with change, we don't know what the outcome's ever going to be. And it's a different way. And I love giving that example, because a lot of times it's like, okay, we constantly hear it's like, oh, you got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to do this. Like, okay, how can we word it differently? It's like, it's change.
Right.
You got to be okay with change, because when you're stuck in the same situation, you're never going to improve. You're not going to make a difference. You're not going to change at all.
Mm-hmm.
But as you make changes slowly, it's like, yeah, the outcome's always scary because you don't know whether it's going to be good or bad. But you got to be comfortable with that change, you know, and sticking to that change. And that's something that I had to learn personally, is like, I had to accept that, you know, keto diet worked for me for that little bit, I guess I'm going to say it worked for me to slim down and get a little bit more athletic. But at the same time, I stayed there, and it caused me to actually lose a lot of athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to be okay with the change of coming out of it, which was terrifying. And, you know, explaining to people that seeing a grain of rice and putting a grain of rice in your mouth was literally terrifying to me, and it caused so much anxiety, is tough for a lot of people to like wrap their heads around.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a reality. It's like, I was literally terrified to put potatoes in my mouth, because I was like, this little piece of potato is going to make me fat.
Right.
You know, and I had to first, and this is what I kind of understood, was I had to understand that I needed to make a change, and that I wasn't 100% okay. And then I had to be willing to make that change. And it's tough, because without the education, I don't know if I would have ever, but like I got educated enough with my sports nutritionist that's like, hey, this is why eating is going to help you feel better, you know? And I think education is a huge part of it as well.
100%. Is there any tips you would give anyone, you know, that may be suffering with an eating disorder or disordered eating?
Definitely just talk to someone.
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend talking to professionals, because it's a very tricky world. So fortunate enough, like Mike Nielsen was very educated in it, and he knew, and he understood that I needed to make that change. And he helped educate me on the importance of sports nutrition and why athletes need to eat a different way, and why athletes weren't your typical, you couldn't treat your body as a regular person would treat their body, because you're putting it under a lot more stress. I would just recommend like talk to someone, and, you know, the little changes, as scary as they could seem in the moment, you're going to feel so much better long term, that it's so much more worth it, you know?
Absolutely. Simple advice, but that's kind of sometimes all it takes is just being vulnerable and talking to somebody.
Yeah.
And if we kind of talk about it in like the depression world too, it's like, if you're depressed and you need help, like, you know, maybe you don't feel like you can call the doctor, but like telling your best friend or telling a cousin or someone you trust, and they could help you. Maybe they call for you, or, you know, they are the catalyst to you getting that help. I kind of want to, you know, I got a couple questions before we wrap things up. I know we've been talking for a while, but honestly, we could do this forever, man. I really appreciate you coming on.
Trust me, I should have warned you in the beginning. Like, my biggest issue is I talk a lot.
It's all good. Hey, that's not a bad problem. But I kind of want to back up a lot. And we talked about The Secret, right? Why did you pick up that book? Why do you normally read? Or, I mean, people don't just pick up that book. Like I have a memory of when I found out about The Secret, and I'm just curious how that came about. And then also, you said your top 3. What other books? Like, what are your other, like, you know, top 2 books, let's say?
Yeah, no, for sure. So I actually picked up The Secret because my dad read it.
Oh, cool.
And we talked about like my whole situation with volleyball, and I was like, damn, I'm not where I want to be with it. And my mom recommended it to me, and I was like, all right, cool, let's do it. And then shoot, I read the first 3 chapters and I was hooked.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I think The Secret is so good to help people with their mindset on certain things. And that it was just crazy that you got to believe. And the way that I took it, and everyone kind of like, they understand the book differently. The way that I took it is like, if you don't believe that you can have certain things, or that you're going to live a certain way, you're always going to be stuck in the mindset of, you're always going to be stuck in the life that you don't want to be living.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like fake it till you make it kind of do, you know. It's like,
sure,
I love that example where it's just like, if you don't believe that you can live that lifestyle, how are you ever going to live that lifestyle? You know, if you don't ever believe that you can, I don't know, I'll give my serving example, right? If you don't ever believe that you can serve 65 miles an hour, how are you ever going to serve 65 miles an hour?
Yeah.
You know, so it changed my mindset on like, dude, you got to believe in yourself before anyone else. You got to be your biggest fan. And I'm a huge believer on that. You know, like if you're not your number one fan, who's going to be your number one fan?
Amen.
You know, so
that's do you have any manifestation? Okay, so real quick, if you haven't read The Secret, basically it's all about, and this is going to sound hokey, whatever, read it or even watch the documentary, but whatever.
Read it
though. Or honestly, in my opinion, well, for me, I listen to a ton of books. I'm a big listener. So no bullshit. If you like, oh, I can't read, put it on, listen to it. Cause I have like, ADHD and I have trouble reading, but I consume books like crazy just by driving to work, commuting, things like that. So don't make that an excuse. But basically it's like, manifestation of, your thoughts are what's going to manifest in your life. And that's not only positive things, it's negative things. So if you're thinking like, oh, I hope I don't have a panic attack, your mind, the universe, God, whatever you want, whatever you believe in, only hears panic attack. It doesn't hear I don't want one. So it's like changing that mindset of, I'm happy that I am living a mentally well life or whatever. It's all about wording and self-talk. So just curious, do you have any like manifestation like practices that you do?
I love my life, and me and my buddy always remind ourselves about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's sad to give this example, right? But I think a lot of times we forget how fortunate we are.
Yeah.
And
it's true.
I love to give the example of a lot of times people in America don't realize how blessed they are to live in this country. And it's sad to give this example. And we're living in a time where it's reality, right? I'm a 24-year-old guy and I'm still out here. I'm working, I'm in school, I'm better improving myself. But there's a 24-year-old Ukrainian kid fighting for his life in his country right now, trying to save his country. It's the reality of the world. It's like, we are very blessed to be alive. We are very blessed to have a food on our table. We are very blessed to have a roof over our heads. Not a lot of people have it like that. And that's a constant reminder that I tell myself. I'm like, dude, life is not hard. Like, life is hard. Life is very hard.
Right.
But life is also very good. And it's a blessing that we get to wake up every day. And like I said, I'm my biggest fan. So when I play volleyball, I'm just like, okay, cool, you made a mistake. So what? You also bounced that other ball last time, I tend to focus a lot more on the positives than I do on the negatives anymore. Because I used to
That's
always awesome. And like I mentioned earlier, I used to always just be like, there's always more. It's like, no, you're pretty good right now. It's like, keep doing at it. And yeah, there will be more, but like, enjoy how good everything is now, Absolutely. So just remind myself that life is pretty great, and yeah, I will have stressors every now and then. Yeah, I will get stressed about how am I going to pay this, or get stressed about, damn, I have this due date. I have like 10 assignments due. It's like, at the end of the day though, that's not going to dictate who I am. Stressful thinking about those things, but it's like, I know that I will work hard enough to take care of certain things. I won't worry about them sitting there, because if I worry about it just sitting there and it just sits there, nothing is ever going to happen. So it's like, hey, no, I know you're good enough. Like, let's tackle this right now. I'm my biggest fan. I had to learn that,
man. It's hard. Self-love is important though, man.
It really is.
So important. But okay. Go ahead.
I'll give another great analogy that I don't remember who or how I heard this, but it was a huge, just like moment that I had in my life. Because it goes back to, oh no, wait, I think it was either in The Secret or because you asked me my other two books. So I'll give you my other two books. Body Mind Mastering.
Okay, cool. There you go.
Body mind mastering is one of them. I don't know where my copy went, and it's honestly very hard to find anymore because every time I've gone to Barnes and Noble, I can't find it.
Really?
I can't remember who the author is, but it was pretty much about how we can't just focus on our body. We can't just focus on our mind. It has to be a balance.
Yeah.
And how life is all about balance. Right. I think it came from that book.
Okay.
But it gave the analogy of what you give out is what you're going to attract to everyone around you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if you see a drop, you're like still water on a lake, like a glass lake, right? And you put a drop in that, it creates these little ripple effects. You got to think of yourself as that little drop. Whatever you do, you're automatically spreading that energy or that happiness or that sadness or anything to everyone else around you. So what kind of drop of water do you really want to be?
Mm-hmm.
And the bigger the drop, the more ripple it has and the bigger the ripple effect is, right?
I like that.
So I've always also lived kind of like by that. It's what kind of people do I want to attract around me, or like what kind of attraction of my energy do I want to give to the people that are surrounded by me? You know, so it's another huge analogy that I had. So Body Mind Mastering is my second favorite book. And it gave me the whole perception of sports performance and understanding situations. Because I wouldn't be anxious to practice, but when we got into games, I was super anxious. Why? Because the environment changed. And it gives the analogy in Body Mind Mastering of, if I were to give, let's say you, and I'll run you through this exercise. I love it.
Sure.
If I gave you a 2x4 and put it on the street and I told you walk across it, would you easily be able to do it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get that same 2x4. We're going to raise it 30 feet in the air above a pond of crocodiles.
Right.
Can you walk across it as easily?
No.
But it's the same plank of wood, right?
Right.
What changed? The environment.
Simple.
So
yeah.
Dude, true, right? It blew my mind when I read it. I was like, damn.
Just the environment.
How can we, and everyone's different, right? How can we learn to control our surroundings in order to focus in on what we got to focus in? And I'll give you my answer. Yoga. Yoga taught me how to be in myself and how to be in my own space.
Okay.
What I love about yoga, it was also another smack in the face of like, everyone thinks of yoga as, oh, you're just stretching.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah.
I will test everyone to go in through a yoga class. I guarantee you're going to be more sore the next day than a day at the gym.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and it's being able to be strong in flexible poses. You know, like, oh my gosh, I had to learn so much. And then the crazy thing that I had to learn with yoga is I'm a very metaphorical person. And like, I love seeing the world in so many different ways. And it kind of gave me two analogies, the physical and then the mental analogy. So in yoga, it's so much about aligning your body to be in certain positions.
Yeah.
When I first started off, though, I was trying to power into certain positions and I fatigued myself.
Yeah.
When you learn to just take that deep breath and figure out how can I align my body to be comfortable in this position rather than I'm trying to hold myself up in this position, you can stand in them for hours. But in the beginning, I would exhaust myself because I'm just trying to muscle through all of it, right? And it's not about that. It's about aligning everything and being able to hold still. So it's like, there's the physical aspect of like, dude, sometimes you don't need to power through things. You just got to learn how to align your body to produce enough force. But then the metaphorical aspect of it, right? It's like so many times we try to power through certain situations and we waste so much energy trying to push through it, that in reality is like, if we can learn how to create that structure to let it happen, it's so much easier. And it's a great example of in another book that I read. I don't remember which one that one was. You kind of want to be like water when it goes through streams, it doesn't try to go through a rock. It finds its way around it.
Yeah.
If it tried to go through that rock,
pretty powerful. Yeah.
It would be stuck there all day.
wasting energy.
So that's kind of like how I saw yoga. I was like,
that's pretty good. That was a good one. That was good.
I have a lot of these analogies and I love giving them because it's just like, it's life. It's hard because I think in this world of that we're living and in the mental health space, and I'm a huge advocate for it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like every coach, sometimes you need to hear it from someone else, but it's exactly the same thing. So it's like, I always, you know what, if one analogy doesn't work for you, maybe this one will, or this one will. Because a lot of times it's a lot of the same stuff that we repeat ourselves. And it's like, sometimes we need something else to help click. So like, I've had all these little things that throughout the years have just helped me click. And I have, when you could see it back here. Yeah. I love the Buddha.
I got a lot of Buddhist
I love it.
Tattoos, so yeah.
I saw these and like, granted, I haven't done research on like Buddhism, but I love little quotes like these, right? And we were in Oregon and Sun River, and these were hanging up in a shop, and I was like, I need those in my room. And it's even, I don't read them every day, but like you notice them every now and then. So it's kind of like, I think it puts life in such great perspectives that I love reading little quotes like this. I think it helps us understand that, like, hey, we always need to take a step back.
It's a little pause. A little pause. Because everyone's just, we're go. And it's like, oh, read this, get reconnected.
Yeah.
Man. All right. We're going to get to our last couple questions here. So I want to go back. Let's say, you're about to call your mom, to come home. Is there any advice or conversation? Like if you can go back and tell yourself something, have a conversation, do something, what would it be?
If I could go back. Wait, can you repeat the end of that?
So basically, again? You go back, you're in a bad spot, right? You're finally ready to, I want to call it like your rock bottom, but almost like a rock bottom with your eating disorder. What kind of advice would you give yourself, as you're kind of moving forward to better yourself?
That's tough. I think what helped me in my situation was the acceptance of, hey, something's not right, and I need help. I knew that I couldn't go through it alone and I needed the help. So I was like, I can either continue doing what I'm doing and I'm just not going to be happy anymore, or dude, maybe something's not okay with me and I need to talk to someone about it, and I need it, and I need that support, and I need that backbone to help me get through it. That's kind of like why I got to that point where it's like, I called my mom and I was like, I need to come home. And I need to talk to you. And I didn't tell her in the moment, like, this is what's wrong, but I was just like, I knew that I needed to talk to someone about it, and told her 2 weeks later. So yeah, I think the hardest part is accepting and the willingness to speak to someone about it that may know better.
Where can people find you at if they're looking for you? I know we didn't really get off the court today, but I mean, like I said, check out the Dalton Solbrig episode. Hopefully one day we can kind of get everyone on here and do a little powwow. Where can people find you at with Off the Court, and also your personal stuff?
Yeah, definitely. We have Instagram and TikTok. Off the Court Health is our handles for Instagram and TikTok. And then my personal Instagram is first name, last name. So James Anastassiades. I definitely recommend looking at my last name to spell it, because it's a lot.
It'll be in the video, and it'll also be in the description of everything.
Yeah. So yeah, you can always find me on Instagram or Facebook, and my DMs are always open. Always willing to talk to anyone about anything. And I'll give you my best advice that I can through my experience. But like I said, I think there's a lot of benefits in talking to professionals about it, because they can definitely guide you a lot more through getting out of it faster, I would say. I think if I didn't talk to my sports nutritionist about it, I don't think I would have gotten out of that situation as fast as I did. So yeah. Cool. But hey, we can always have a conversation. I'm always open to talking. I talk a lot.
That's the thing. Like, we're all, like, I might not be able to help you directly. You might not be able to help them directly, but it's like, hey, if you need to talk, like, let's talk. Like, you're truly not alone in this. And it's like every episode, somehow gets to this, it's like, if you're at home listening to this and you have, you're struggling with an eating disorder or whatever it is, like, just because you don't maybe know someone personally that's dealing with it or somebody you could talk to, like, we have the internet now, man, like the Instagram or TikTok. It's like Anxious Ambition is a big community. You can message anyone on there. We're all dealing with something similar,
Exactly.
or reaching out to you, be like, hey man, like I'm struggling. What do you think? Like, kind of just talk to you about it, So, I want to thank you for even being open for that. Cause I know it's going to help, even just one person, we all know it makes it worth it, man. I guess our last question, James, how do you want to be remembered?
That's good. Oof. I mean, shoot. I mean, definitely. And I live by this. Like, I definitely want to be remembered as someone that made an impact on whatever it is that I do. I definitely want to be remembered as someone that helped a lot of people. That's for sure. And that's like why I'm so open about all of this, right? Over the past 3 years, I've made a video every October during Mental Health Awareness Week about my story, because, if it helps one person connect on a certain level, I'm very happy with that. I'm okay with that. So yeah, I definitely want to be remembered as someone that helped and lived his life. I think a lot of times that's one thing we forget. It's like, I don't want to be remembered as that guy that just overworked. It's like, no, I want to be remembered as that guy that like lived his life, dude. Life, you get one shot at life. It's so worth living it. And when I say live it, it's enjoy every experience that comes with it. Like, take experiences, travel, try different cultures foods, like talk to that person that's sitting next to you at Starbucks. You don't know what they know, like just talk, and just like get to learn more about life and all this kind of stuff, like, yeah, I would say someone that lived their life and someone that helped people throughout their life. I love to travel, love to experience different cultures, so all that good stuff.
I mean, it sounds like you're already, you're living that now. You've been through the surviving stage, whether it was through, transferring, moving across the world, not alone just transferring schools, you moved across the world. And then, you had your phase with the eating disorder where you were in survival mode again, and that's relatable for a lot of people in different, mental, illnesses, but mental health issues. Like when you're dealing with a lot of anxiety, depression, you're just surviving. And, our goal, you want to get out of that so you can start living. So, I just want to say, thanks so much for coming on. You're super vulnerable. You shared your story, I really want to have you on because I haven't, really even had a real conversation with, a man, that's dealt with eating disorder. And I applaud you for being so open with it on the internet, coming on today. Just super grateful you came on, man, honestly.
Thank you for having me on this. I think this is great. And I'm so happy and so glad that you're doing this. I think not enough men have conversations like this. I think a lot of it is that locker room talk. And I just think we all got to be a lot more open about talking about the stresses and the struggles that we're going through life, because end of the day, we all go through the same thing. It's just who's better at hiding it. It's like hiding it isn't going to help fix it. Talk to your friends about it. So I think the mission that you're on and this podcast is fantastic, dude. And you're just doing such a great job with it. So thanks so much for having me on this.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad we connected. Anyone out there, like I said, check out James's Instagram, check out Off the Court, their TikTok. I mean, I'll be honest, like TikTok to me was like, what the hell is this shit? But you guys kill it, man. You kill it. It's entertaining. It's educational. It's not like, it's great. Your content is really good, man. Because
I think one of our big missions with that is we feel like this mental health space can be a very like deep and just sad, but it's like, how can we make it a lot easier for people to talk about? And that's kind of like our mission with Off the Court is like, hey, how can we bring these stressors a little bit more light, and how can we bring dealing with them a little bit more like up joy? We're all happy people Off the Court, so
yes, sir.
We want to help other people get to that point.
Yeah, you guys put out some great energy. Honestly, it's super positive, and I love it, man.
Appreciate it.
Thanks again for coming on. thank you for everyone for listening. If you're listening, on YouTube or Spotify or whatever, like subscribe if you like this. Tell a friend that might need to hear this, or a family member might be struggling with anxiety, depression, eating disorder. Like this isn't, you can listen to any one of these episodes and pick something up that's going to help you live a better life. Because it's not all about, oh, woe is me, this is what happened to me. It's like, no, James is going out there chasing his dreams despite his struggles. That's the whole mission behind Anxious Ambition. Like, we got goals, man. We're trying to achieve them, even though we've dealt with, our struggles. So thanks again for listening, guys. Until next time. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Anxious Ambition podcast. You can find us on all podcast platforms. Follow us on Instagram at Anxious Ambition. You can actually watch this podcast over on YouTube. Lastly, check out our website, anxiousambition.com, where we have all of our merch, and a portion of every sale is donated to NAMI, and it helps support the individuals and their families who are suffering from mental illness. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, take it easy.
Anxious. Ambition.